Nope.
Not very well, are you not?
Nope. Not very well. I'm still here, Ant. Hey?
Still clinging on.
Hey, this is a very terrible start to the podcast, but I don't think we've ever had a sick day, have we?
No.
Can you remember us ever having a sick day? Tell you what, fucking Batman and Robin here. No, I don't think we have.
Don't think so.
Tell you what, Nick, heroes we are.
No.
In fact, let's fuck all Christmas off. We just sorted them calls out. Let Sky do it all.
No, because I do take sick days. If I get ill, we're all fucked.
Right then, motherfuckers. I'm going to ask the first question. I'm going to go, I'll go Sky first. Favourite part of Christmas Day?
Ooh, all right. I like, now that I don't drink, because I used to like the drinking, but I don't really drink anymore. I like the post-dinner nap. Ooh. Oh, yeah. And wake up and have some more roast potatoes. Nick?
Best part about Christmas Day? Yeah, probably the food, because I never have like that type of food. I never have roasts or anything like that.
Mm.
So, not that I'm a massive fan, but I do like that. Yeah, it's good.
Sky nicked mine, but the other thing is games. How can you not like? I'm obviously mega competitive, so it can get quite violent in my house.
Intense.
Yeah, it is intense. Like, you want to see the beer pong that goes on at stupid o'clock at night. Wow, it gets intense in our gaff. Honestly, it's bad. So yeah, that's a good part of it.
I actually used to like going to Pure Gym on Christmas Day and training when no one else was there. I'm not that sad anymore.
Yeah, I did that actually. I used to do that, and there was Peter and Vera, who was like an old couple. They'd always go in on Christmas Day, and I'd train at the same time and have something to eat with them. Anyway, no one needed to know that, but I just thought I'd bring Peter and Vera into it, if I'm honest.
Sound.
Next question, please.
Where are we starting from?
We started from Nathan.
I've got a question for. I'll ask the next one. What does freedom or financial freedom look like to you?
That's a good one. We've had this conversation, and this probably changes over the years, but I think the first real time that I felt financial freedom was, and obviously I still feel this now, but I think it was being able to go food shopping and not look at the price of anything and just get what you need and what you want to get. Like, that's a really working class answer, but for a long time it was like, right, this is my shopping list, this is my budget, and I'm adding it up as I'm going around. But I think now it's being able to pay all of your bills, have a few holidays a year, and save for your future. I think that's financial freedom, and that will obviously look different from each person. But on a deeper level, I think for me, it's being able to do those things, but also not have to work every single fucking hour that God sends to do that, which I think some people do, especially when you work for somebody else. You work a lot of hours for very little thanks. And yeah, so I think financial freedom is also about the time that you can have, as well as what that finance gives you.
Anything else?
Similar. Like, I think the biggest thing for me, my version of that is being able to work and have an impact, and obviously gain the financial return I need, but to never sacrifice, I've said this time and time again, the time that I have with my kids. So like, you could say, so weird this actually, me saying this now, because I was looking at archive stuff, content and stuff from social media, and then there was a video from 2019 where I had missed a dance show of Lex's, and that was, we were away at Coventry speaking for Pure Gym or something like that, Nick, and that was the turning point for me of going, I ain't missing any more of that. Like, financial freedom looks like for me, I'm earning the same money or more than I am now, but I ain't missing a fucking thing ever again. Like, it's not happening. And then since that and coming out of COVID, I've been pretty much bang on in regards to I've not missed a thing, to a point there it can get, I've said it time and time again, can get in the way of work, can get in the way of earning more money. But my version of financial freedom is be able to leave work, be present and be with my kids in the things that matter to them and that I enjoy and I look forward to more than anything, and still being in a position where I'm not having to watch the pennies, a bit like you just said. That's my version. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. Not much change from that.
Thanks for that. Next question.
My question. How do I create content that helps my audience to get to know me and shows my day-to-day without coming across as if I'm making influencer-type content? This isn't the sort of personality I have, so I want to make it authentic/genuine, but also make it easy to consume and engage in.
Okay, I had a chat with him about this on Friday, but so I'm probably not the right person to say it because he's already heard it from me. But just generally speaking, it's quite hard. Like, weirdly, I've gone through this weekend when I was doing work yesterday morning, looking back on content and looking back on even story archives, weirdly enough, at this time of year to see what we were posting. And I couldn't get over how much of my personal life I used to share. Like, it was literally every day, Asbo, every day. Everyone knew him as Asbo, all the family and all that stuff. Because then it was very natural for me to do it. It wasn't inauthentic. I was sharing it in a blend of work and I didn't have to think about it twice. Whereas my life is so different now in regards to I'm back to back all day at work and then I'm with the family and I don't think about sharing it. So my point being is, to bring it back to the question, is that it's difficult because your life will change at different points that doesn't suit fitting social media into it. You don't think about it. It's not every second thought for most people if you're really busy. So my pushback to him on Friday is that it doesn't have to take over your life and it doesn't have to become the influencer thing. And I think for me, it's putting yourself in a position where you first of all are going, these are my boundaries and I'm not doing anything past that. I'm not doing that. I'm putting that first. And then within it, I would jot down like the day-to-day stuff that you're willing to share, because there's some stuff that you probably don't want to fucking share. And I think that's important. And then it's just, again, building a habit of the randomness of you walking to the gym in the morning or going through the doors at the gym, or whether it's you at home slagging your missus's cooking off, it still resonates and you can still have a laugh. Or it's the day-to-day stuff. And Sky, you're in a better position than me right now because you're better than me at this in your sharing your day-to-day stuff. Whereas 3, 4, 5 years ago, I was doing it all the time. And I'm going to be dead honest, 3, 4, 5 years ago, we had a much better connection and engagement with our audience than we do now. And I actually think a big part of that is because of that. So times change and life fits and business and social media fits in at different times. But I think it's just being the fact that you're aware of it now will probably start to see you act on it a little bit more. But I'm just going to throw it over to you, Sky. What makes it a little bit easier for you?
I think when I started doing a bit more of this type of content, I was genuinely just setting up a camera and filming what I was already doing. And I wasn't staging it. Like, if I was working on my laptop, I'd film it. If I was training in the gym, I'd film it. If I was coaching a client, I'd film it. You know, if I'm making a fucking coffee, I'm filming it. And it seems mundane, but sometimes people like to know that you're mundane as well. And sometimes it's stating the obvious of like a day in the life of an average guy showing you his work day, not an influencer. Like, if you feel awkward about it, then talk about it. Like, use that awkwardness to be like, I'm not an influencer. Here's my normal routine. Because even though you think it's boring and there might be a bit of imposter syndrome, we all fucking love to watch other people's lives and see what people are up to. Like, what coffee do you drink? You know, how do you get to work? What's your gym look like? All that kind of stuff. People do actually like to see it, even though they don't ask to see it. So if it feels weird to do it, I think what you've said is great. Have boundaries about what you want to show. Like, some people don't like to show the inside of their house. Like, some people don't want to show some of their clients, whatever it might be. So know what you don't want to show. And then the things that you are just doing anyway, just start filming it, like, or taking pictures or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I genuinely never think of doing that. And in my head, it's not something that I would probably ever do because I think it's at points now, in my head, it's too much. But at the same time, I'm like, if I'm in a position where I'm running a personality-based business, which is what you are, like, you are not the business, but you know what I mean? You're the face of the business. Like, is it important for people to connect with you in everyday life and you as a person? And I would say yes now more than ever. So if I was in that position where my personality very much relied on the business, I'd have to adapt and change my thinking to it. In my like, sometimes, and I know some people will look at that and go, "No, I'm never doing that." Okay, cool. Well, that might mean that people are slower to connect with you, and therefore, if they're slower to connect with you, they're probably going to be slower to buy from you at points. depending on what it is that you do. I'm not saying sharing everything out there, but I think what you're saying of what you do there, I wouldn't do now. But I think if I was, and maybe we should do that a little bit more, I'm not sure, but if I was coaching it was relying on me and getting my personality across as much as possible, I would have to do it for a period of time. If not, it'd become a bit of a habit.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit weird at the start, isn't it? But you're right.
Yeah. But in terms of making it engaging, like it could literally be 3 seconds. 3 seconds of you sitting at your laptop, 3 seconds of you in the gym training, 3 seconds of the coffee that you've bought. Like, it doesn't have to be a full 5 minutes of what you're doing in that day. And I think that's what puts people off as well, as like, oh, I'm going to have to film a whole day. You're not. You can literally do 30 seconds throughout the day, clip it down to 3 and make a really snappy video that shows a little bit of what you're doing. It might not even have you in it. It might be you walking your fucking dog. It might be what you're eating for tea. Like, the short and snappy is engaging, but having a person in it is more engaging as well, especially that you said if it's you. If you're not the talk to camera type, which I think is always going to be better if you can be engaging talking to camera. But if not, that's your second option. And those videos with a talk over as well for people that don't want to talk to a camera but are happy to talk over a video, they do really well.
Agree. So I'm going off here. I've got the dustbin man outside, the window cleaner fucking putting his ladder on my window. So if you start here banging, it's all going off here. I'm going to have to change these podcast days. It's just not fitting out around my bin men. Next question, I'll go to Nick. Realistically, how many hours of marketing should you spend a week to work on your business?
I don't necessarily think it's how much time you should spend. I think it's because that's relative. Like, you know, someone who's just starting out on social media will spend a lot of time creating social media content and someone's been doing it a year. And, you know, so contextually it's quite hard to say. I think what I would first do is work out like your mediums of what you're going to use, where you're going to use them. I think then breaking that down into sections, tasks.
Not this again.
And managing. Oh, was it gone?
Oh, was it me that went then? Sorry. Go on, Nick.
Hey. Breaking those down, putting them into time slots. And I think living that, first of all, is the only way you're going to understand how much time you've got to spend on things, because you don't know. You don't know. And that might change week to week as well. So I think putting a single digit number on it is quite challenging. I think getting the task down, living it, managing your energy when you're doing those things more so is probably going to be the one thing I'd stay away, have awareness on the most, and adjusting as you go. Yeah. I don't think I can put a time on it, really. Anything you'd add?
Just for people who need some guidance, obviously a more direct answer coming from me, but I personally would say that you're probably looking at a working day a week across your week. Personally, probably if you want to grow your business and constantly have a consistent influx of leads and clients, I would probably say as a range 6 to 10 hours a week just on marketing. But marketing's a beast. So you could argue more, you could argue less, to Nick's point, but I know there'd be some people thinking, yeah, but what's the range, or what is a figure? So I would say 6 minimum, like literally minimum, because you've got to cover all angles. And this doesn't count gym floor lead generation. This is very much counting for email marketing, social media marketing, creating lead magnets, that type of stuff.
I think that the key thing is this is not something that you can just pop in for an hour into your schedule. Like with your programming, you could probably put an hour there, an hour here, because that's something you've done over time. I think it needs to be at least a 2 or 3 hour block, either spread across a few days or it's a bigger block spread across less days. But that's what maybe trips people up, is I think when they look at the schedule and they're like, well, I've got a 3 hour there and I've got a little gap there. I don't think that's enough to get your head into that space and to start to make traction. And then you got to pull yourself out to go and do something else. So whether it is a full day or whether it's across 2 or 3 days, it just needs to be a very decent working block. That's the main thing that's helped me.
Agree. Who's next?
How to best avoid imposter syndrome, fear of rejection on gym floor lead generation? SCOI.
I don't know if this just comes with experience now or what, but I think the only time that I ever feel imposter syndrome or a bit of fear of rejection is if I'm doing something that doesn't feel like me, or if I'm doing something in a way that I don't want to do, or I don't know. I feel like people put pressure on themselves to be a certain thing and do something in a certain way, and that's when it feels like imposter syndrome, because they're like, this isn't me. So if you're going out on the gym floor with the intention to get to know people and to speak to people and help people, there shouldn't be a fear of rejection, and there shouldn't be an imposter syndrome, because you're not being an imposter, you're being yourself. If you're going out there to try and sell to people and, you know, to have those cold conversations and say, do you want a taster session? Then yeah, you probably are going to feel like that, because would you like someone to do that to you? So I think if you can try and think of, how would I like to be approached by coaches in a gym that I'm training at, whether I need help or not, I'd probably like a bit of a conversation, someone to take an interest in getting to know me get to know them. I wouldn't reject someone that was trying to talk to me in that way. So for me, it's always thinking in that sense of, how would I want to be approached? How would I like to have a conversation? How do I connect with other people in different areas? Or how can I just be me and have a conversation? When it comes to lead gen, doing it that way, and then if you do have something that you're trying to talk about, like a workshop or a survey, you're much less likely to be rejected, because you're being yourself and you're actually trying to connect with people. That's really vague, but that I think that's where people slip up, is like, they don't believe in their lead gen magnet. They've just done it because they think they should, so they're not really behind it. So that's why they shit their pants, and they're not just being themselves when they talk to people, and so again, they feel like an imposter. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
I agree. This is something that unfortunately comes with experience, time, and you facing into being a little bit uncomfortable. Coming back to your point is, listen, there's no getting away from it. And I think some people neglect and avoid it in terms of customer service is a massive part of your job as a coach and running a business. I bet if we looked at most PTs' schedules or what you've done last week, how much of your time was based around delivering customer service to people that don't pay you. So in my opinion, sometimes that's a harsh reality of, if you're doing that to people, if you're not doing that to people who don't pay you, you don't deserve anything in return. So it's getting your head around, granted, accept imposter syndrome to a point. I also think that, have you got imposter syndrome with lead generation, or have you got imposter syndrome with customer service? Because I think the first thing to address is, if you feel like that, is you've got to get great at delivering really good customer service, to even to a point in the gym floor that it looks like you're employed when you're not employed. Like, you're just going around being open, approachable, asking people how they are, how their day's been, all of that type of stuff. And it kind of feels like you're employed, and nobody is too experienced or too good not to do that. So I think get great at delivering good customer service, and naturally you'll have less imposter syndrome around lead generation, because you're just practicing the skill set of having conversations with people. I absolutely felt like that. And the only way of me no longer feeling like that was practicing the skill of customer service, because it made me feel less salesy, forceful, or anything like that when it comes to asking for something. I didn't have to. A lot of the time they were asking me. So yeah, who's the next question? Is it me?
Me, I have not asked one for ages. For new PTs, if we are consistent with marketing and lead generation, what should we expect in January in terms of new sign-ups?
It's a depends answer. It depends on loads of varying things. But if you've been really consistent and you've consistently delivered a call to action off the back of that, you will gain and gather interest throughout January, as long as you remain consistent. But I think what's really hard about this is thinking about your expectations, because if your expectations are to get lots of new signups in January and that doesn't happen, will that dampen your motivation and consistency with the marketing and lead gen? And if it does, you need to address your expectations. Like, yes, we all want sales, and you all will have targets to hit for joiners in Jan, Feb, and so on. But you've got to make sure that, a bit like the advice you give your clients, is that if you focus on your process of customer service, lead generation, and the times that you invest into that, then naturally, as long as you're hitting them with the call to actions, you will get the return that you deserve. So it's really hard to say what's a number that you should expect. I would say expect nothing and just graft your ass off on the process of awareness, interest, and then the call to actions that you're going to deliver people, because off the back of that, over time, you'll get the return that you want. So yeah, difficult to say. Very similar to Nick's answer before on expectations. Anything anyone would add to that?
No, I think people just need to remember, like, when we're putting all this effort in, there's still another half of this equation, and that's the people and what they want to do and where they're at. And we can't control that, no matter how fucking good our marketing and lead gen is. The only thing that we can control, the same way we say to our clients, is the effort that we put in. And like you said, not just, it's the equivalent of a client that steps on the scales and goes, oh, fuck it, none of it's working, I'm not doing it anymore. Well, then you're definitely not going to get anywhere. So you need to just continue to be doing the things that you're doing, regardless of the result.
So it's always a good way to correlate marketing with fat loss.
Yeah.
It is. Like, because you could go, in general, if you're in a 20% deficit, you might lose £1 to £2, but you fucking might not, because there's loads of varying factors into it. It's the same with marketing sometimes.
Yeah. But you're still going to crack on, because that's the only fucking way that you get progress.
Yeah. Yep. Nick, how to keep clients on track throughout the Christmas period?
I think the first thing is being on the same page of what the client wants over the next month or so. Like, not everyone will want to keep on the same progression as maybe they've been. And I think that's what probably the bigger key to what you do to keep them on track, because it depends on what that means to them individually. So I would take assumption away that everyone wants to keep everything exactly where it is going into the Christmas period. And I think half the battle is allowing clients to feel like that's okay as well, and they're not failing at anything. I think when they start to feel like they're failing at something, they start to withdraw. Honestly, everything would come off the back of having those conversations now about what Christmas looks like to them, how they want to deal with things, what are the barriers, what are the challenges. Do they want to kind of take a little bit of a step back for 2 weeks on maybe controlling what they're eating, whatever it is, whatever it looks like. But that's genuinely how you would keep clients on track during Christmas. Anything you'd add?
I feel the same. I can't help but sometimes be frustrated by this. And I know that it's like, it's not the coach's fault. It's like the industry as a whole. But I think if you're not having these conversations with your clients all year round, like, you should be having the same conversation when it comes to school holidays. If you work with parents, you should be having the same conversations with anyone that's got a busy social season coming up. What do you want this to look like? And I think we get to this time of year, and I think coaches just shit their pants that they assume, like you said, everybody is going to be wanting to go off track or wanting to completely change things. There's going to be a lot of people that, like, I was speaking to my mate yesterday, she fucking hates Christmas. She hates it. Like, it's just a stressful time. She wants to keep her routine, to keep her fucking sanity. So for her, it's just one day where the world stops, and then around that, everything is pretty much the same, barring, some of the gyms aren't open at normal times or whatever. So yeah, I think Christmas shouldn't be treated any differently to any other time of year. When people have got stuff coming up, having that conversation of, okay, what is the next month going to look like for you, or what is the next couple of weeks? What do you want it to look like? Rather than assuming, let's have a chat about Christmas. How are we going to change it? People might not want anything to change. So, yeah.
Do you think it matters whether you follow a lot more people on social media than they follow you? Is it a turn off for people?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it matters to people. I'm only coming from my echo chamber. I don't think anyone gives a shit about that. And if they do, they're probably a wanker. So they're probably not worth thinking about anyway.
I don't think people really notice or give a shit. But what I would say from a different perspective is, I think most coaches should not follow as many people as they do. Because I think a lot of people get really fucking confused, or they start comparing what they're not doing or what they are doing. It's almost like the more they consume from other people, the less creative they get. And it's really hard to have an original thought or to talk in your own voice when you see so many other creators making content. I think it's fine if they're like in different industries to you, or they're just like funny pages, but I think most people in their industry could do with maybe following less people in their industry, and they'd probably feel better about being online.
I agree.
That's a very good point. That I remember talking about this years ago. I think we did a podcast on it, Nick, or something in regards to what slows down like a level of action from the majority of PTs. And I think it was like overwhelm or overthinking was the topic. And I remember we must have talked for ages on that point, what you just said. That's so important, that, because it does stall a hell of a lot of coaches. Good point, Sky. Well done. That might just be the point of the podcast today. But
just the main point.
Whose question is it now? I'm
trying to find one.
No, it's not. That's not it. It's not it. It's not it. Best Christmas. Wait.
What?
Wait. Yes. Best Christmas film. Can you tell my brain is fried and I can't think of anything useful to ask? Well, I would disagree, Katie. I think this is very useful.
Yeah,
but there's only one winner here, right? There is only one winner. We were asked this at this point last year. Me and Nick agreed on this. So Sky is about to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, and I already know it. Away you go, Sky.
Okay, I'm not massively into Christmas films, but I'm going to try for you guys, all right? And it's not going to be what you want it to be. It's going to be The Holiday.
Which one is that? You're going to have to... I'm rubbish at remembering films, so which one is that?
It's the one with Jude Law, Cameron Diaz, they swap houses, Jack Black. So there's two people. There's a woman in America, a woman in England, and they swap houses for Christmas.
I think I have seen it.
Go and watch it.
I'm going to watch it again. I'm just going to watch it because you said Cameron Diaz is in it, but I'll watch that again now.
And Kate Winslet.
There is more questions, Nick.
There is, no. We just can't be asked, can he? He's poorly.
No. It's a fucking... He wants an Udi and a cuddle, the cunt.
How to encourage clients to plan their weeks without sounding like you are directly telling them what to do.
Go on, Nick. Go on, Nick.
The client really struggles with structure and planning.
No, it's not that question.
Fucking way ahead. Go back, pal.
Encourage clients to plan their weeks
without sounding... we're not on that question.
We are. How do you encourage clients to plan their weeks without telling them what to do?
Oh, yeah, we're on.
But there's more context, isn't there?
Is there?
I have a client who really struggles with structure and planning with the gym and life in general. She's someone who tends to bury her head in the sand. You can see a visible difference in her mood. I speak to her when she has everything planned, feels like she's putting in the effort compared to the low mood. I see her when she's overwhelmed and not making action. Strip things back to basics quite a few times already to avoid overwhelm, so I feel like I'm running out of ideas to keep her going. It's actually similar to the answer I said to the Christmas question. I think, listen, when people aren't doing things, there's usually, if we go back to theory of motivation, it's either they've had no or very little choice in what they're about to do, they don't feel competent in doing it, or the environment isn't making them feel in a safe place. So what I would suggest is going back to the goals and understanding what she wants, what her expectations are, what her struggles are, and using that as kind of a basis to then build upon, like, okay, what does good look like to her moving forward? How is she measuring success? Like, what could that one thing be that would make her feel successful in the next couple of days rather than the next week? How do we then close that feedback loop, whether she's done it or not, and how she's felt about it and stuff? So I would basically, similar to what you've done, it sounds like, strip everything back, but everything come from her, with you just kind of supporting that, and take as smaller steps as you think you need to. Or, sorry, let me rephrase that. Take smaller steps than you think you need to. That scenario. And also, some people don't get on with structure and planning as well as others. So again, is that your biased being pushed from her? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, anything else and I'll throw into that.
I have this with other behaviors that people have, when I can see a negative impact that it's having, but I need them to see it. So then I will try and lead the conversation to asking questions where they get to because you're saying I can see a change in her mood, but she needs to see, and she needs to correlate the fact that when she doesn't plan, when she doesn't do these things, she tends to have, different mood, feels like she's not overwhelmed. She needs to put the pieces together that when I plan, things go better. if that's how she feels, it might be like Nick said, that you're just assuming. So it's trying to lead the conversation in a way that she comes to the conclusion of, you know what, things go better when I plan. And then why not do it with her rather than showing her and going, right, you go away and plan. You could literally, in some format, sit and do it with her. The same way that you might go, you know what, your eating is better when you have a plan for the week. Let's make a meal plan together of things that you like, things that you want to eat, the time that you've got, the money that you've got, whatever way you do it. So you can take that to any scenario. And that's something that I do when it comes to things like planning meals. Instead of me saying, you eat better when you plan meals, go away and plan, we'll do it together. So I'm not telling, and they're not also getting overwhelmed with a task that they don't really like doing. That's what I would add.
Next, how do people manage everything? Oh no, this is hard.
I saw this earlier.
Go on, this guy.
Yeah, my initial thought here, and I think we've had this conversation loads before, is that I don't think enough people talk about the fact that when you start to do more things or add more to your business, you're going to have to put in a lot more fucking effort and hours. You're going to have to take from your social life. You're going to have to get up earlier and put extra hours in. You're going to have to be more strict with not dicking about on your phone, not being distracted. Maybe your training sessions are shorter. Like, there has to be more effort directed into these things. That doesn't mean that you're going to have to put that effort in all the time, but certainly at the start, when you're adding more things to your service or you're creating new things, that time's got to come from somewhere, and it's going to feel like a lot. But like, for instance, you've just done a welcome pack. You're not going to have to make a welcome pack every week. That's it done now for, maybe 6 months to a year. The next thing that you do, you might only have to do once. And the more that you do things, the quicker you'll get. But we can't get around the fact that at the beginning it is hard. And I think lots of people are like, well, you could do this and you can make it easier and this and this. But no, sometimes it's just fucking hard. Like, at the beginning, you're putting a lot of effort in, a lot of hours in, until it's not as hard. And then that's when you start to see a little bit more of the kind of fruits of your labor. But that was my initial thought when I read that, is like, I really want to have a good answer for you, but the answer is like, at the beginning it's fucking hard.
The only thing that I would add to that is that be super clear on what it is that you want and need, because that should steer the things that you prioritize. Because sometimes it can feel like you're doing a lot of everything, and sometimes you just need to step back and go, right, what am I really, really, really wanting to work towards? What do I need to work towards? And establish the clarity around them points. And then go, right, what are the things that are taking me specifically towards them? And then front load them in the week. And then when you do that, sometimes it cuts out some of the shit. It's still going to be lots to do, and it's still going to be really hard. But I think this time of year is great for doing this. It's just going, right, essentially, is there anything that I need to delete out of my week that is making it really hard? Yeah, but I echo what you just said. It is fucking hard. Is it my one? If I was to create a meal prep book for busy parents, should I offer this free or charge them for it? Nick.
If it's to generate leads, no. If it's to make money, yes, but I doubt that will make you a substantial amount of money versus generating leads that you can convert into your business. So, yeah, there's my answer.
If you could give young Nick and Oscar one piece of advice as they started their journey into business to make the most amount of money, what would it be? Nick's face is like,
I clicked on his check-in and I was like, whoa. And then got back to the question.
to make the most amount of money. To young Nick and Nan.
To make the most amount of money?
Fucking hell.
That's a hard question to answer, to be honest.
I think for me it'd be amount of fucking spending. Stop spending so much, you'll make more money, mate.
Honestly, the first thing that comes into my head is get rid of it, get rid of morals. It is.
If that's all you want to make the most amount of money, that's a weird question, I think.
Well, if like
get rid of morals. I get you.
I know there's certain situations where we could, or not just talking about PTMA, but like back in full-time trainer days, it would be like, yeah, I'll just sell anything to anyone and not give a shit. That's how I'd make a lot amount of money. Whether that would be sustainable or not is another question. Yeah, it's the first thing. It's hard because you've always worked to achieve something, like lots of traveling when I was first there and first in the industry and bits and pieces. So it's never been, it's hard because it's never been the sole motivating factor. But you can make a hell of a lot of money in the industry now.
Yeah, I think it's about, for me, going back to Young Sky, I would get her to just charge more. Just charge more, because most people are undercharging anyway. And that's not in like, just charge more because you, and not give a shit about what you're delivering. Obviously, make sure that you are delivering a great service. But I think a lot of people are and still don't charge enough. So for me, that would be a better way of making the most amount of money from what I'm doing, is to fucking charge what you're worth.
Yeah, I was just going to say, separate your personal and business values. Similar to Nick, I was just like, if it's just about money, get rid of who you are and focus on making as much money as possible. And then the only thing that I would say to that is I think that's a great shout of what you just said about charging more, because that young Ant would have definitely questioned myself on price. But I also would say that don't make decisions for the now. Focus on decisions that will grow you long term. And what that might be is that, let's say, for argument's sake, I don't know, as a really quick, easy example, that you want to do volume of revenue, then maybe you've got two choices of going high price point, literally getting after that, or going, I'm thinking to myself, high price point, and then obviously growing with coaches and all of that. But then you might turn around a bit like we've just had a conversation with someone this morning, is going, actually, I just want to make as much money with as little input as possible. I've just frozen. So yeah, make decisions and attack them decisions really quick without any level of self-limiting beliefs. If you're just chasing revenue, it should be really simple. Like, if you're just chasing revenue, you've hardly got any conflict. It's how can I make as much money as possible? So the decisions of that become tons easier. So the advice I would give myself is like, create the decision, back the decision, and make sure that that decision makes me money in the future, not just now. Is there any remaining questions?
Yeah, there's one here. T's question. Got it?
Do you still experience overwhelm in your business? If not, can you recall the time that you did and how you overcame it?
Who?
Let's go with Sky first.
Okay. Yeah, probably about 6 months ago. I was really overwhelmed, busy.
Nick?
Yeah, I think they're really good points, Sky. I think the only thing I'd add to that is a little bit of a self-acceptance. Two things: self-acceptance, that you've got to take, like you said there, you've got to probably let go of a couple of things first before you can move forward. I would say the second thing is probably asking for help, or seeking or voicing it with someone, or I think that always helps as well. Talking problems through and challenges through often makes you feel 10 times better, even if you don't come to a particular step next that you're going to take next. I think getting it out of your head always helps with overwhelm. Yeah, always does. So those are the only two things that are excellent.
Is there any more questions? Or are you waiting for my reply on overwhelm? I'm overwhelmed by questions here. Yes. Do I get, essentially what you're basically saying is, do you get mentally and emotionally stressed? Yeah, most weeks, if I'm dead honest. But I run a business, and actually a second business, and I have family and kids, and I actually think you become quite conditioned to it. And you try and minimize that by being clear on what it is that you need to focus on, being clear on accepting what's important to you and what's not. And that steers most of your decisions, which makes it a little bit easier. What are you laughing at? Which makes it a little bit easier to kind of compartmentalize it and accept it. It's a fucking big word for a Gorton kid, that. Yeah, and accept it and go, right, that's great feedback. I actually think people get overwhelmed and see it as a negative sometimes. I'd flip that and go, that's giving me good feedback that I need to sit down, sort my shit out and go in, right, what am I overwhelmed about? Out of that, what do I need to prioritize and then talk to someone about if I need to talk to someone about it? So I think sometimes people say, yes, it's a negative because of how it makes us feel. But I would flip that and say that's giving me direct feedback that I need to change something. So I'm cool with that, because if I change something, I'm going to be less overwhelmed, which is a fucking step forward. So normally it's, are you giving yourself the time to help yourself out of that? A lot of the time people, the self-talk is, oh, I'm overwhelmed, don't know where to start. Yeah, but have you actually sat down and then gone, what am I overwhelmed about? What do I need to prioritize? Do I need to talk to someone out? Talk to someone about it? What support do I need to get? A lot of people just go, oh, I'm overwhelmed, don't know where to start. Great feedback, fucking work on it. Go on. Hey, did Jack not ask a question at the last one? The cheeky little bastard, he didn't. I'll tell you what Jack's getting.